We are back to Final Fantasy -1. Today we are going through the Earth Cave in this beautiful patch of this game. We are talking to you from Melmond, and as we're just looking through all of our equipment here, you can see what we have for armor, weapons. The Paladin there, level 11, still doesn't have any level 3 charges. The Ninja, though, has some level 3 charges, and the Black Mage with a couple of level 4 charges and some level 4 spells. At this point in the game, we are still fighting ogres when they're single ogres, when they're easy to just take out, because they still are a pretty lucrative fight. We're going to be heading on to the Crescent Lake area, or at least looking for the Crescent Lake area. Remember, you can't assume that everything will be in the same place, or that there will be all the same things when you're dealing with ROM hacks and playing them sort of blind as I am. The Earth Cave is the map tiles have been changed a little bit for where the Earth Cave is on this side. So Melmond is not quite as close to the Aldi Sea, the Inner Sea. You have to kind of go around that, and then the mountains create a barrier that you can't just park your ship close to that Earth Cave and go in. You do have to do kind of a treacherous overland walk here that I did want to demonstrate in the video. Probably not strictly necessary to demonstrate it in the video, but it gives us a chance to talk a little bit about what we've seen in this patch so far. The difficulty curve is definitely on the favorable side so far in this patch. One thing that I do appreciate about this is that it doesn't create a very, very hard challenge for players. Kind of everything is boosted a little bit. Bosses have been a little bit tougher than they are in the vanilla version, but our characters have a little bit easier access to some power earlier on in the game. Of course, I have been doing some off-recording power leveling just to make the crawls of these dungeons a little bit more smooth for you, the viewer. This is farther than I probably would go in a casual playthrough of this game. The Earth Cave, the first floor tiles immediately you can see have been changed up a little bit. I've explored it here a little bit before so I can see where we're going. There's some chests here on B1 of the Earth Cave, and that's generally what you find in the vanilla version too, is just a few chests you can clear out, and it's nice because you can go in, clear the chests out, go back out, go back to Melmond, heal up, rest up. That kind of helps you in some of these dungeons, and that's what we're going to kind of sneakily do here in this one. And here we have a trapped square in front of the chest. Now, I do recall from earlier that the Earth battles are escapable. You can run away from the Earth battles. I saw that in the Temple of Fiends in the back warp tile there. When we saw Earths and fires and waters and things, they are escapable, so I could just run away from that battle. But when we have single Earths, I can usually, with just attacking, take them out in one round. So I can fight those when I feel like I can to get a little bit of extra gold and experience. Here I am burning some spell charges that I wouldn't do if this was a full crawl of this done, but after the first floor we're going to do a magic transport back to Melmond to recharge, but we won't see that on the video. We'll just do a quick change to B2. Because I do want you to see what these tiles look like without making it overly long, and the Earth Cave is already long enough once we go past this first floor, so there's no sense in doing too much more on that. And that's why I'm fighting a few more battles here on this first floor to kind of show you some of the enemies. After this, I'll only be fighting some of the inescapable encounters, or encounters that I think I can win really easily. Now, these Knight-type enemies are inescapable, at least from what I have seen. It was the same story with these Squires, which share a sprite shape with these guys. So I'm assuming that Pink Puff, the author of this patch, has made all of these Knight-type enemies inescapable. So that would also go to like the bad man, evil man type of enemies later. And I don't know if they've kept them in here or not. We will see when we get to the later parts, but so far the Squires, and I believe the Knights here too, are also inescapable. And pause there because it is a trapped square, a trapped tile. Now, you can always tell that a battle is escapable if it is a Monster Strike First type battle. If you can get a back attack or preemptive attack in the monster set, then it is escapable. The inescapable battles will never have a back attack or preemptive attack. If you can run away, then you can't have those. And I think that was just a way for the designers to build it so that you couldn't fight bosses and get back attacks or preemptives on a boss, because it certainly would be nice to bump into Tiamat or somebody and get a full round of actions before Tiamat can go. So a couple of potions right there, and some money we're going to be finding on the first floor here. And again, I'm just kind of willy-nilly burning spell charges to make this first crawl easily. Those will be recovered when we go to B2 on this video. The bulls, we actually have seen these before in the Northwest Castle, although we didn't fight them on our way down to Astos. So we are just going to fight them when we have one of them here that we can take out in a couple of hits, especially with my Black Mage, able to do 3 hits with the Mage Dagger. And the Mage Dagger also having some kind of weapon type. I'm guessing it's lightning type, because it has been super effective on the Pisco demons. And I believe they are susceptible to the lightning. At least the Coral Sword and the Mage Dagger have been really putting it on. But it's possible. I don't know if it's possible. I should say I don't know if it's possible for a weapon to have more than one type. It might not be, because there's no other hint in the name of Mage Dagger that it has any specific type. So without a comprehensive weapons list, I don't know about that. One thing I should mention, if you've been following the story of these videos so far, is in the Mystic Key opening video. I did not go to the Elfland Mystic Key door. I missed that as I was running through it. I forgot to go to the back of the Elf Castle, and it had mundane equipment, mundane items. There was no major key items. It was potions and money and some redundant armor, I believe. So nothing super important there. Here I'm burning the heal spells again because I fully expect a trapped tile in front of the chest. And indeed, here is the earth. The Viking doing really nice damage with that hammer. I keep the hammer on the Viking and not the Great Axe because right now the hammer has enough accuracy to get the knight an extra hit, the Viking an extra hit. So it's much better to have another hit than to have more damage per hit. So I'm keeping the hammer on the Viking, and the Viking will have to pick up a few more levels before it would make a difference to have the axe there. Axes generally have pretty low attack power, high attack power and low accuracy for the axes. So I'm keeping the hammer there because the hammer also is really, really nice when we do bump into undead type enemies that we can take out pretty quickly and easily. There's poison. One little bug fix in this game that I appreciate that a lot of hacks do is that your characters are not reordered automatically when they are poisoned. That is something that is an incredible headache in the vanilla version of this game. Here's the change down to B2, so now we are completely healed right here with spell charges and hit points. But something I think the designers of this game thought they would be doing you a favor by, okay, if a character is put into a weakened state like poison, then they need to be in the back rows, or maybe they're trying to tell you that this character has been hobbled up, this character is slow and therefore can't move as quickly as your other characters. But it ends up being a really big handicap. And the way that it reorders your party is just really wonky and really funky, and it requires you to go into the select menu to change your marching order every time someone gets poisoned or KO'd, of course. Now in this one, it does not reorder them when they get KO'd or poisoned. So I actually haven't had to go into the select menu since I picked up my first piece of heavy armor for the Viking. And if you remember in the very first video, I didn't have access to heavy armor. The Viking can't equip the chainmail type armor, so I was actually my Paladin who was my front row tank because the Paladin had the highest absorb. And the Viking was totally naked until I could pick up some of the first of the plate mail type armor. I think it's the iron armor, maybe is the first one. So this treasure room is guarded at the entrance to the room, so I'm going to have to fight these earths again on the way out. It's not just in front of the chest. I'm going to have to fight them on the way out of the room. Not a problem. I'm guessing this battle is 1 to 2 earths as I look at it. So it's possible that I'm not going to get 2 earths with a back attack on the way out, which would be very handy because earths really hit hard. There's a triangle hat. I'm going to throw that over onto my mage. And I'm going to check the mage's stats here to see what kind of a boost we get. Right now the mage has 13 absorb and 90 evade. And the triangle hat gives him 16 absorb and 90 evade. So no penalty to the evade and 3 more absorb. There's a nice chunk of money right there. And so here is a set of 6 knights. So these knights are going to be just trouble. We have to just fight them. They have, I'm looking at them, I believe 80 hit points each, but that's only just based on observations. When I've seen hits of 80 kill them and hits of less than 80 seem to not kill them. And the big deal is if you're going to get some criticals on them and if you're going to land all your hits. These knights seem to have some evasion to them. So these characters that should be getting like 3 hits, 2 or 3 hits, often will just land 1 out of the 2 or 3 hits that they do. So these knights have some evasion and they have some decent absorb. And they seem to really need a critical hit to take them down. So there was the ninja hitting all 3 for 40 something, but there's my black mage with a nice hit with the critical. So these knights are just kind of a pain. They don't have like nuke spells like some of the evil men do in the vanilla version of this game, at least as far as I've seen. It's kind of fun to see if you let the evil men hang around for a few rounds, they get through their spell list and they get down to, I can't remember if it's nuke or XXXX. It's one of those high level black magic spells that is really nasty to deal with. So when we see the knights, we are going to be fighting them through, sadly, and later on they will be worth using a spell charge, but for right now I'm trying to conserve my spell charges as much as possible, which is also why I'm healing with potions exclusively and not using my spell charges, because I would like to keep some of the harm spell charges in case we do run into trouble with big groups of undead or something, so I'm not really using the charges from my paladin. You notice that potions are much more expensive in this patch, but thankfully, they heal over 100 hit points, or right around 100 hit points when you use them. So it is really, really nice. Here's a back attack, but from 1 earth. So potions are much more expensive, but you have the option to buy 10 of them, so you don't have to sit there and grind out buying 1 at a time for 99. And you can use them to actually recover some significant hit points and not have to burn 2, 3, 4 potions at 30 hit points each over and over and over and over again. So when we get these hard smacks from these earth enemies for 50 or 60 hit points, we can recover all that with just 1 potion, and I can conserve them a little bit. So these groups of undead, they are larger groups, which are great for grinding, but they will paralyze you pretty quickly, pretty easily. You can see my Viking's going to be stunned a lot. The damage is not huge on them because we have pretty decent absorb for all of our characters. But the stunning can be bad if you get chain stunned. The green ogres, not going to worry about those guys. I would normally, if we were grinding out for cash or experience, I would be fighting those guys a little bit more often, but here, not so much. We're just going. I'm trying to get through this dungeon as quickly as I can. I'm going to be picking up the treasures as I find them. There's probably some treasure rooms that I'm going to miss because these dungeon floors, to crawl them thoroughly, can really take a long time and be a really big drain on your resources. So some of the treasure rooms that are off in far corners of these rooms, I'm not going to pick all of them up probably as we go through. Everything that I can see and easily get to, I'm going to try to find, but as we'll see in B4 and B3, if I find the stairs, I'm going down the stairs. Because that's how I play this game in the vanilla version. For dungeons like these, I can't always count on there being unique one-of-a-kind items in every little one of these treasure rooms that's tucked off in the corner. So if I miss one, I guess I missed one. And just healing up before going into this room, anticipating a trap square there, but there is no trap square in this one. There's another copy of the Coral Sword. I've already got one, and I'm using it with my Paladin right now because it's a little bit better than the Light Sword. Speaking of the Light Sword, here's where I'm going to experiment with trying to use these items in battle to see if there are any properties on them. In the vanilla version of this game, you don't really get any all-targeting item properties until well past the midpoint of the game, usually, when you start to pick up the Thor hammer or Thor gauntlet and the heal staff, those kinds of items, and the mage staff, but those all come fairly late in the run. And the game manual, as I remember, does not make it very clear which weapons have those kinds of properties, because I remember playing the vanilla version of this game and trying every piece of equipment that I could, because the manual said some pieces of armor and weapons will have effects in battle if you use them using the item command, but there wasn't a table that told you which is which. Things like the mage staff were listed in there, but as I recall, it did not have a something that said, oh, mage staff casts fire too when you use it. So here we go down to B3. This is normally the vampires floor, and the design layout of this floor is a reference to the vampires floor, because the vampires floor does have kind of a spiral pattern like this, where you do kind of work your way around to the right towards the center of the room. That's where you fight the vampire, and then behind the vampire you pick up the ruby, which is another key item, which you then have to exit the Earth Cave to bring the ruby to the Titan to get the rod to smash the plate behind the vampire. So it's just another key item there, and it kind of forces you to do the Earth Cave in 2 crawls. Now that could have been, if I was a designer, that could have been a way to ease players into doing longer 5-floor dungeons like this, to push them into, okay, come down halfway through. You'll get a little bit of gold and a little bit of experience trying to get through here. This battle with 6 knights, I haven't attempted to run from knights yet, so I'm gonna attempt 1 round of running before we fight them, just to see if I have just missed a chance to run from these guys, because if I find out that they are escapable, that would be very handy. But as we'll see, I am not able to pull it out and get away, so we are gonna have to fight these guys, and they're 80 hit points each. But if I was designing this game for first-time RPG players or late 80s RPG players, that would be something to think about, that you come down through, you pick up some treasure, you get some golden experience, you have to fight a mini-boss, you pick up a level or 2, then you have to go back out and come back a little bit stronger before you go down. That's something that I could see being a strength to an early part of the game. It's also a way to add some time to flesh out your game a little bit, which if you thought your game was a little bit thin, that can artificially flesh the game out, which is also a kind of an economical way to use game resources. So smart all around. I certainly could have used that in the vanilla version in the Gurgu Volcano, because at that time I did not really understand the concept of grinding specifically to pick up levels. So I was stuck on the volcano. I could not get past Carrie because I had not been explicitly grinding or trying to pick up extra experience or gold. So I was pretty weak when I got there, and I did not put it together that, oh, if I just fight battles for a while, then this carry person will be a lot easier. Or if I do the volcano in a few steps, like if I go in and pick up all of the treasures on the B2 second floor of the volcano, then go back out, recover, save, then I can just run through that part. That would have been smart of me to figure out, but sadly, I was not that clever. So the night battles are going to be consuming some time as we are in the dungeon here, and I'm hoping that there aren't too many more inescapable battles in this one. That is something that I think is kind of a weak point for some of the harder type patches of this game, is making lots and lots of battles inescapable. Particularly in dungeons, because one of the unfortunate but necessary things about this game is dungeon layouts having such a minimal screen that you cannot see much of a screen in any given spot. So right here we have a very narrow view around us in this dungeon, and it's very easy to get lost or disoriented, especially if you don't remember which direction you were moving before the battle hit. So it's very easy when you have lots of long, inescapable battles to forget, did I go down to that door already, or was I heading down to that door? You have to kind of consciously say to yourself, all right, I need to go south, need to go south, need to go south. And when you have confusing and disorienting dungeon layouts mixed with lots of inescapable battles that take you 2 or 3 minutes each sometimes, it can really, really be a drain on your mental resources. And that was just some mundane gold, but we are still on our way, going down to the steps to B4. As we finish B3. Normally, of course, this would be where you have the slab that you have to break with the rod that you get from the sage. And here I'm just looking to see if I need to recover as I go into the next floor of the dungeon. And so here's another floor where, again, it's not a nice open layout like the Marsh Cave is, where you can kind of thoroughly go through and systematically check out all of the areas. You have to do lots of extra stepping and lots of extra backtracking that I'm not super interested in doing. So I do see this door up here, and we are going to try to clear the treasures out of this door, and then we're going to be heading on through. So here is another nice chunk of money. That will be helpful when we go into the Crescent Lake area. I'm anticipating a trapped square right there between those two chests, and indeed there is. Now, 4 rock golems. This is normally a very, very late game or a much later part of the game type enemy here. And I'm anticipating that it's inescapable. I don't actually try to run away from this fight, but I am anticipating that this is not going to be an escapable fight. If I was the designer of this patch, I would not make this fight runnable. I would make us fight this one out. So we are going after the rock golems, and you can see 2 hits for 80 and 90 damage in a row. So I'm going to have to use some of my buffs and debuffs here to survive this fight, and I do want all 4 of my characters on their feet after this one. So I use Sleep for the Black Wizard to try to slow things down a little bit. And then I have Invis from my ninja to raise our evasion, and I'm really glad I did that, because we really don't want to take any hits from these rock guys. An ideal strat there would be to use another Invis, but the cleric does not have the Invis spell. It had the Protect spell. So Protect will help on there, but I would rather not take a hit at all than take a hit at a lesser damage level. So right here we can see that my Viking is able to penetrate their defenses a little bit. So there's a hit for 100. So a hit landed for 101 damage. Protect will help. That will increase our absorb. But these guys have just such high power, and they're not doing it with multiple hits. They're doing it with 1 hit. So the protection from the Protect spell does not get stacked like it would on an enemy that was hitting us 3 or 4 times for 90 damage, because then the absorb gets subtracted out of each hit. These guys just hit you once, and they hit you hard. I'm having the Black Mage just attack them to check for weaknesses, because my ninja, as we just saw, is not chopping through their defenses. It's really only my Viking that's doing any meaningful damage. So I'm just seeing if they have any kind of magical weakness. So far, they've resisted everything I've thrown at them. I am going to drink a potion to try to keep my Viking health a little bit higher, and my Paladin, because they're just going to get beat up so hard. I'm going to see if the arrow spell will work on them. So there is 400 damage with 2 hits from my Viking, so that hammer is just absolutely crushing these golems. And it looks like we are going to survive this one now that we're down to just 1 golem and all 4 characters alive. I had to use quite a few charges of spells there, but I tried to keep them on the lower side if I could. I did use 1 higher spell with the bolt, which was a little bit silly because I had already seen that the Coral Sword was not getting through them. If these guys were susceptible to lightning, the Coral Sword would have done more damage. So that was a tactical error on my part. So Cal and Dan picking up level 12, finally catching up a little bit, the potion, and there is the Vorpal. That is a Fell Sword. So sadly, my Paladin cannot equip that Vorpal Sword. Now, a reasonable assumption to make, based on what we've already seen in other dungeons of this game, is that there will be somewhere on this floor a corresponding light sword to the dark sword right there. We have seen that, I believe, one other time. The Temple of Fiends had it, where they are both available on the same floor, and maybe also the Pirate's Cave had another one where you found a Fell Sword and a Light Sword on the same floor that were both a step up in power. But as I'm going through here, I don't know where the other treasure room might be on this floor. And one area I do not explore is the area that goes to the south there. I move my way northwest, and we end up finding the stairs, and I decide just to go on to Lich because I think I have everything I need to beat Lich without fighting another big trapped square. So I may, in the off-stream time, decide to go down there and try again to get the sword, and I can report that to you if I find that. But in this video, we do not go down to explore because I find the stairs, and once I found the steps, I am moving on for this one. So the Vorpal, sadly, will go unused, and we'll see if it sells for a decent chunk of money in the off-recording area. And as I was moving up here, I was thinking that I think I kind of remembered the stairs are in the upper left corner of this one. I was first trying to find the other treasure room. I was hoping to find the other treasure room first, because I certainly would have fought another trapped battle if I had stumbled upon the treasure room first. But as we saw the stairs, I decided to move on. I'd like to talk about the spell Will as we're approaching Lich here, and there are the steps indeed going down to B5. So the spell Will is a 2nd level white spell, and it resists dark, holy, time, and earth. And I picked that spell up. I was kind of on the fence about it, but these hacks or patches generally make better use of the buff and debuff spells. So I decided to pick it up, and I'm really glad I did. Because in the vanilla version of this game, Lich starts off with Ice 2 as his first spell, and then moves through to some other things that aren't quite as dangerous as the Ice 2. So you want to start out with the Ice spell with the Lich, really. But I was thinking about what I would do if I was programming this, and when I saw that there was a dark element, and I saw that the spell Bio is a spell I could pick up, has the dark element, I just was thinking maybe I would put some of Lich's abilities towards that dark element. And so, kind of sight unseen, as I fought Lich here for the first time, I do decide to cast Will, and as we'll see here in a minute, that becomes a pretty smart tactical move that I did mostly by accident. Partly by deduction that if I was designing this, I would put that into Lich's progression. So we'll see some things pop up from Lich, because all of the Fiend bosses, I'm imagining, have been pumped. Usually doubling the hit points of the Fiend bosses is a standard thing that a lot of patches will do. Doubling at least. Because in the vanilla version of this game, their hit points are so low that it becomes really not worth using buffing spells at all, because you would much rather just throw another attack at them, because they only take a few real good solid hits to kill. But I'm anticipating some of these battles are going to go on a little bit longer with Fiends, so it's going to be more worthwhile to set up your defenses, because you're going to be fighting a little bit longer with them, and they're going to have some nastier stuff. Because I believe Lich in the vanilla version has like 400 hit points. And at this time, if you've got fighters and you have the spell Fast, you are fasting the fighters for, four hits for oftentimes, 100, 200 damage each. So if you've got 2 fighters, 2 red mages, a couple of fast casters, and the battle's going to be over in 2 or 3 rounds. So even if you take an Ice 2 and everyone is in critical hit points, you don't mind, because Lich is going to be throwing stuff like Blind at you or Darkness at you or some other kind of silly things that Lich will do. Just checking hit points on everybody, burning a few more potions. I don't mind burning a few more potions, because even at the cost of 200 gold each, I've got well over 50,000 now. So I think when I next go to a town, I'm just going to buy up to 99. Here's the Piscos again. I don't mind fighting these guys at all, especially with that little mage knife that my black mage has. 3 hits for 379. You don't often see black mages doing that kind of damage outside of wielding the Masamune at the very end of the game. Doing much better damage even than my ninja with the Tempest katana. And there's the Coral Sword doing 2 hits for 308, so another really nice piece of damage. Vikings pounding away. And let's see if we can also do another one, 358. Yeah, 3 hits for 358. So definitely there is hitting into a weakness there. And I didn't explore this floor for any treasure rooms or anything like that. I don't know if there is anything significant. If I go back in, I can report it to you and poke around inside the cave here. I can report that. So we're going to fill up and just check our magic supplies here. Right now, we're looking at the Will spell right there, and now we can see he does have a charge of level 3 magic. At level 12, he picked that up, but I did not get to didn't get to go in there. So that's too bad. But oh well. looking at the stats because I'm switching from the Coral Sword over to the Light Sword. Just wondering in case there is a property of the Light Sword versus Undead. I don't know if I'm going to be hitting into a weakness there. I just thought I would try it and see. So I'm taking a little bit of a penalty to attack power to see if I can hit into a weakness on Lich. I do love that you don't have to select a target in the Fiend battles. That has been maintained. Here's the Will spell. And the ninja is going to cast the Temper spell on himself. So that raises your attack power by 15, I believe. And that one does not work in the original game, but it does work in this patch because it's a very easy fix. Yeah, raise damage by 15. So Will is going to defend against the Dark Element, which we'll see the Bio spell from Lich. And then we'll see how little it does to us. And then there is Haste, which is like the fast spell in the first game. So the ninja is now going to be having double hits. So the ninja is going to be doing lots of hits, and he's been tempered. So each one is going to do 15 more. So my math was that if I give the ninja fast, that gives him up to 8 hits now, and then each hit will be boosted by 15. So there's the Bio spell, which we now resist thanks to the Will spell. So that damage has been quartered. So that damage could have been doing up to 200, I believe, for the Bio spell. The Bio effectivity for that spell is, I'm looking it up as we're going through this battle. Oh, well, there's the there's the end of the battle as I'm trying to look up the effectivity of Bio, but I believe it goes up to about 200 for that. Yeah, it's 50 to 200 Dark Elemental damage. So there is the Earth Cave finish. As I looked up, that's something that I already knew. Apologize about the ending there. So we're looking at our glowing orb right there in the menu. We do have the Earth Orb lit up. So next time, we're going to be exploring the Crescent Lake area. I'm not sure which part of the world we'll visit next. I will explore that between videos, and we'll see where we end up. Hey, if you like this, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave me a question in the comments, or hit me up on Twitter, where I'm also active _ATE. We will see you next time.